defects that every human being has. Yes, Prabhuliko, what are they?
They are mistakes,
Yes.
illusion,
Yes.
perfect senses, and the tendency to cheat.
Right, so imperfect senses, are the eyes one of the senses?
Yes.
So therefore, we have imperfect senses, so we would never be able to see correctly all the time because we have imperfect senses. Like, do you know what's on the other side of that wall? Do you know who's walking around downtown Seattle right now? No. So our seeing is imperfect. It's limited. Okay, so therefore pratyaksha, or direct seeing, will never lead to perfect knowledge. It will give you some knowledge, but it'll never be perfect. So that's first type of pramana, or evidence. Now the second type of pramana, or evidence, is called anumana. Anumana. A-N-U-M-A-N-A. Anu, A-N-U, A-N-U-M-A-N-A. A-N-A. And anumana is basically a guess. G-U-E-S-S. A guess. G-U-E-S-S. So, for example, if you see smoke in the distance, can you guess that there's a fire? Yeah. That's called anumana. But maybe there's a demon behind a hill who's simply boiling water, and the mist, the water goes up, and it looks something like smoke, but it's not real smoke. Yeah.
But isn't there like still a fire under the pot?
Yes. Yes, there is.
So I guess would be right.
It's a guess, yeah. Well, it'd be partially right. It's partially right. If you imagine a fire, like there's a fire like wood burning, and it's making smoke, but it could be a gas fire, it could be an electric burner. You don't really know for sure. You see, so you're guessing. That's called anumana. So will that give you perfect knowledge? No, because our senses are imperfect. So then the third type of pramana, or evidence, is called sabda, S-A-B-H-A. S-A-B-H-A. And sabda means Vedic knowledge. So, Vedic knowledge, who originally spoke the Vedic knowledge? Krishna. So, does Krishna have the 4 defects that human beings have? No. So, therefore, the knowledge that he speaks is perfect. And if we simply hear it and repeat it, we get perfect knowledge. Okay? That's called sabda, hearing from Krishna or someone who repeats correctly what Krishna says. Okay? That's called sabda, S-A-B. Sabda, right. So now we have 3 pramanas, or proofs, or evidences to determine if something is true or false. Pratyaksha is seeing directly, seeing with your eyes. Yes.
Is the last one Vedic knowledge, or
Yes. Hearing Vedic knowledge, originally spoken by Krishna and repeated by a bona fide guru. That's called sabda. So now we have three types of evidence. The first two are imperfect. The third one is perfect. Here comes Krishna 2. Krishna 2, can you see who brought their notes?
He did, everybody did.
Okay, very good. That's all right, she's with her sister. Sit next to your sister. Tell her to sit next to you. Okay, so now we have three types of evidence. Wait, Krishna 2. Don't sit so close to Krishna 1. Okay, Krishna 1, can you summarize the three types of evidence so that Krishna 2 can write it down? Say out loud. Say out loud. Without your hands in your pocket. Without your hands in the pocket.
There's three evidences to determine something's true or false.
There are three evidences to determine if something is true or false. What is their name? What is the name of evidence in Sanskrit? No.
Pramana.
Pramana. Pramana. Means evidence. Evidence means something you use to prove if something is true or false. You can prove it.
One is
Pratyaksha. Pratyaksha. S-A.
Seeing something directly.
Seeing directly, yes. Now, is that a perfect way of proving something? Why?
Because sometimes when you see water on the road, there is
Because the senses are imperfect, right? Not only the eyes make mistakes, but the ears, the nose, the tongue, the skin. We make mistakes with our senses. Because we have imperfect. Does Krishna have imperfect senses?
no.
Which one is it? Krishna 1. Is it yes or no?
I thought you were talking about me.
Huh? Does Krishna have Does Krishna have perfect senses?
Me or
No, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Huh?
no?
Yeah, he has. I asked you, does he have perfect senses?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So, therefore, whatever he says is true. Okay, so, but we have imperfect senses, so pratyaksha is evidence by seeing, so it will never be perfect because we have imperfect senses. Sometimes we'll make mistakes. And what are the four defects every human being has? Krishna 2? Krishna 2? What are the four defects?
Mistakes, illusion, imperfect senses, and cheating.
Very good. Okay, now, and Sidhu, what is the second type of evidence?
Anumana.
Anumana. A-N-U-M-A-N-A.
A guess. It's a guess.
Huh? So Anumana means guessing. Guessing. You ready, Krishna? Okay, Krishna 2. Pay attention. Arush, are you taking notes? Okay, sit next to you. Your father should sit next to you and help you. Make sure you get to make the notes. So, Anumana means a guess. So, for example, can you guess who is downstairs right now? What?
You can guess.
My mom.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, you can make a guess. Do you know if she's downstairs right now?
Yeah, maybe not.
No, maybe she went outside for 5 minutes. So is it a perfect way of knowing? Proving something? No. But sometimes it is, and sometimes it's not. So that means it's not perfect, right?
Some people, like most people, including me, like when someone asks where your mom is, you just tell them the last place you saw them, but they're not there.
Yeah, so you made a guess. Sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong.
And then they come back to you, where's your mom? She's not there.
Yeah. So you see, those first two types of evidence, or pramanas, are not perfect for understanding the truth. And what's the third type of evidence? Yes? Sabda. That, what does it mean?
It means Vedic knowledge.
Right. And who spoke Vedic knowledge originally? Krishna. Yeah. So, is the Bhagavad Gita Vedic knowledge? Because who's speaking? Krishna. So if you want perfect knowledge, which book should you read? Right? Bhagavad Gita. One book will give you perfect knowledge. Bhagavad Gita. Okay, so now, for example, sometimes in school, they'll teach you Darwin's theory of the origin of species. Have you ever heard the title? Yes, Papa? Huh? You're learning that in school right now? Wow. Okay, so what did they teach you about Darwin's theory of the origin of species?
Well, they took the example of like giraffes.
Yeah.
And so then they said that the giraffes with longer necks are more likely to survive than giraffes with shorter necks.
Okay. Why? Why? Because?
I don't remember why, but I think
Well, if you have a longer neck, you can reach higher.
the leaves.
Yeah, tree leaves. If you have a shorter neck, well, shouldn't that apply for human beings also? What if there are human beings with really long neck? Would they be able to? Would they be able to survive better than human beings with shorter necks?
They'll be able to survive less worse. Yeah. They'll have to go. Somebody will stab them.
Well, let's think about this. Are there animals with shorter necks than giraffes?
Yeah.
Then how come they're able to survive?
Because they.
Huh? Like a cow has a much shorter neck than a giraffe. Does it have, or a dog or a cat or a sheep, but they survive, right? Okay, so Darwin's theory is actually, whenever you say theory,
It's like a guess.
it's a guess. Now, there's such a thing as theory, and there's another thing called scientific theory. Now, Darwin's is a theory. It doesn't say scientific theory. But there is the scientific theory of gravity. There's a scientific theory of thermodynamics. So what's the difference between a regular theory and a scientific theory?
Regular.
Yes.
I think regular theory is yeah.
It's what?
It isn't scientifically proven.
Yeah. Is a scientific theory perfect knowledge?
No.
No. So what's the difference between a scientific theory and a theory?
A theory is just a guess, and the scientific theory is a theory that scientists mostly think because it's like most likely to be true.
Yeah. A scientific theory, there is some pratyaksha, which means what?
Seeing directly.
Yeah. By the way, how would you describe the science? Let's not say a specific scientific theory. Let's just talk about scientific theory by itself. What is that? What does it imply? Well, it implies that scientists have made a lot of observations, and they've come to a generalization. You know what a generalization is?
It's like stuff from.
Okay, listen, Yamuna, listen. Okay? Otherwise, we have to play 12 feet.
12 feet.
Yeah.
500.
Okay, so Yamuna, can you answer this question? Do you know what the question is?
What is scientific theory?
Okay, can you say what the term scientific theory, what does it imply?
Scientists are taking a lot of observations and then
Are making a lot of observations.
a lot of observations, and then it comes to like a conclusion.
A generalization. What is a generalization? Wait a minute. Any one of the girls want to answer? Sindhu, you want to answer? Generalization?
It's like a general.
It's like a conclusion.
Yeah, it's
without
a
any
conclusion. Yeah, it's a conclusion without.
Well, let's say you study 100 examples, and in 100 examples, 51 of those examples is more or less the same thing. In other words, let's say you're studying 100 people and over 10 years, and during a 10-year period, 51 of them die. Could you make a generalization from that? Why not?
Because 51 people died and you can't, like,
No more than
yeah.
Well, no, if 51 people died, could you make the generalization that the other 49 are also going to die? How?
Yeah.
They're eventually gonna die, but
Okay, so then you could make the generalization that the other 49 will die, and then you can make another, if that's true, then you can make another generalization that all men will die eventually. You see? So in order to have a scientific theory, you need, for it to be really a scientific theory, now theory means what? It's a guess, right? But a scientific theory is a good guess because at least 51% of the time, what you think seems to be true. In other words, if you study 100 examples, and 51% of those examples seems to be the same thing, gives you the same result, then you could make a scientific theory based on that 51% same result. It's still a guess, but it's a more, let's call it an educated guess. Okay, now if you study 100 people for 10 years, and you see that 51 of them died, what generalization could you draw from that?
the 49 were healthier than the other 50.
That's one generalization. Any other?
49 will die.
That's you don't know for sure, but because 51 died in 10 years, over 20 years,
Yeah.
you'd have a good chance that the other 49 would die. If 51 died during that 10-year period, then
51 people are dying.
no, not dying. Well, okay, that's another way, but no, we're talking about dying. So you could assume that if you wait 20 years, 100 people would die, or a lot more would die, right? And if you wait 30 years, more would die. If you wait 40 years, for sure they're all going to be dead, right? So now you can make generalizations based on that study, right? So this is called anumana in Sanskrit. And it's similar to the scientific theory, or to theories in science, which are basically guesses made on the basis of observations. Now, what happens if one of those 100 people never dies?
You'll die soon.
Yeah.
What?
You'll still die soon.
Yeah.
No, what? You don't know, see? It's possible that one would never die. Then that means that it's still a theory. It's not fact. It's not truth, 100% sure. It's a theory. And a theory is a guess. Because do we have imperfect senses? So maybe one person died but didn't die. Maybe they faked their death. Like, for example, there are people who go up in an airplane by themselves, a one-propeller airplane, and they fly over the Amazon forest in South America, and then they never come out, and they never come back. And then later on, they find the wreckage of the plane in the middle of the jungle in some very remote place. But they don't find a body. So they assume something happened. Maybe the animals ate the person, or maybe he was killed by the natives in the jungle, or maybe he jumped out and fell into a river and then was eaten by a crocodile.
No, they're assuming he's dead. He can just parachute out the plane.
Like that DVD.
They're assuming he's dead, but he may not be dead because they never found the body. So there was a man, this is a true story now, there was a man who was a stockbroker. He would buy stocks in companies and hope they go up. But they went down and he lost all his money. So he rented he was a pilot also, he had a pilot's license. So he rented a small airplane, flew it out into the ocean somewhere, and he jumped out in the parachute. The plane crashed in the ocean, and he jumped out and landed on an island, right? And the plane crashed in the ocean. They never found the plane, and they never found the man, and they assumed that he was dead. Therefore, he didn't have to pay his debts and to the people that he owed money to, you see. Well, therefore, it could be that out of that 100 people, one person does a trick like that and he's not dead. So then your theory would not work. Or there could be one person who is actually immortal, is not going to die, right? Like Narada Muni. So then your theory would remain a theory. There's a difference between a theory and a fact. What's the difference between a theory and a fact? Yes.
A theory is a guess and a fact is something that is true.
Okay, true means it's always true. It was always true in the past, it's true today, and it will always be true in the future. Whereas theories, even if they're scientific theories, they're not always true. For example, do you know about Newton's 3 laws?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So, what happened in the end of the 19th century and the beginning of the 20th century was that, Einstein and other scientists, not only Einstein, but other scientists, yes.
Those theories were just proved to be, those laws were just proved to be theories.
Well, those Newton's laws work. They are true for big bodies under the influence of gravity. But when you get to microscopic bodies at the speed of light, his theories don't work. So they had to come up with another theory to explain the movement of microscopic bodies at the speed of light. So you see, Newton's laws are true in a limited context. So, is that called absolute truth? No. No, it's not absolute, because if you change the context, it doesn't work anymore. You have to have another theory. But Bhagavad Gita knowledge is true always, in the past, in the present, and the future, and in all contexts. So therefore it's called absolute truth. Now let's give an example of what's the difference between absolute truth and what's called a relative truth. An absolute truth means it's true all the time, past, present, and future. Okay? Therefore it's truth. It's not a theory. So Krishna says that while contemplating objects of the senses, one develops attachment. And when attachment increases, there is lust. And when there's lust that's frustrated, it becomes anger. And when there's anger, one develops delusion. And when there's delusion, one loses the memory. And when one's memory becomes confused. And when the memory becomes confused, one loses their intelligence. Now, these are two verses in the Bhagavad Gita. So, let's see if this is true. Let's say you go to Toys R Us. You know where Toys R Us is?
Yeah.
You ever been there?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And you see a toy drone. Drone. You know what a drone is?
Yeah. That's where I go.
And you see some boy in one part of the store playing with the drone, but under supervision of adults. And he has the controls, and all of a sudden the drone starts flying up like this. And then it goes down a little bit, and he's controlling it. Then it goes over here, and then it comes right in front of you. And then it goes over there. Would you like to have that drone?
Yeah.
Right? So, and your mommy and daddy are there. And they said, we're going to buy you a present. And you see that drone. Would you ask your mom and dad, please, I want that drone? Yeah. What if they said no? Well, you see, this verse in Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, 62nd and 63rd verse. Write that down. Bhagavad Gita, 60... Huh? Yeah, you can get the Bhagavad Gita, okay. Bhagavad Gita 62 and 63.
Bhagavad Gita, what chapter?
2nd chapter, verses 62 and 63. And it says, while contemplating the objects of the senses. So the object of the senses is the drone in Toys R Us, being demonstrated under adult supervision. And there's a boy, and he has the controls, and there's a special part of the store where they show this, and the boy is controlling the drone. He goes, pushes the button, and the drone goes, zzz, starts flying around, and you're standing there, and it comes right in front of you. Zzz, and you're looking at it, and then it goes up and then over somewhere else, and that boy is controlling it, you know. So you, by contemplating objects in the senses, one develops attachment. Do you get attached to the drone by seeing it?
Yeah.
All right. And when attachment increases, it becomes lust. Do you know what lust is?
I want it.
I want it. It's very strong attachment. So strong that you say, if I don't get it, I'm not going to be happy. That's called lust, right? And when lust is frustrated, what happens?
Which page is it? 2.6.
Okay, so when lust is frustrated, you become angry, right? Now, what happens when you get angry? Okay, can someone tell me, let's see, Arush, when you get angry, what happens to you? You get mad, right? And what happens when you get mad? Do you remember what you're supposed to do, what you're not supposed to do? No, you forget, right? So, we explained previously what is the difference between an illusion and a delusion. Can anyone explain it? Do you remember that? Do you remember that? No. Sindhu, can you explain the difference between illusion and delusion?
Illusion is when you see something that is actually not there. Like if you think it was a mistake. And then delusion is when you get scared when you're in illusion.
Exactly right. And you begin to act as if it is a snake by running away. Right? Now, I'll give you an example. In 1999, people were afraid of Y2K. You know, Prabhuji, you can tell us what Y2K is. Can you tell us? Huh? Do you know what it is? No? Not a you? Of who?
I would guess.
Okay, go ahead.
They were scared of this 21st.
What?
They were scared of this 21st.
Yeah, why were they scared though? What was going to happen on January 1st, 2000?
The world was going to end.
No.
Computer year was changing from
What's that?
the 1999 to 2000 it was changing.
The year, see, the computers were all going to get confused because they were not programmed to go from 1999 to 2000. Right? It's called a computer glitch. There was a mistake in the program. Huh?
What happened? Did it say 1 or something?
Oh, it was going to say something else, and the computer would get confused. Now, the whole country is running on computers, right? So many things are depending on computers, businesses and government functioning, the military. Now, if all the computers went down, and banks also, banks especially, right? Then the whole country would get paralyzed. And that means that they would have to, before the year 2000, fix all the computers in the country, in the world, in fact, right? So people thought that it would be the end of the whole economic system. The whole economic system was going to collapse because all the computers were going to collapse, go down. So what happens? Let's say, what happens? What's going to happen tomorrow if Amazon.com computers go down?
Then people can't order products and they're going to be yelling.
Exactly right. Right. See, you wouldn't be able to order anything, and people would get extremely upset, right? That's happened, by the way. It happened. Actually, it happened a month ago. It went the whole East Coast of the United States. Amazon computers went Amazon, software went down, and people couldn't order anything. And they got extremely angry, and Amazon lost a lot of money. And also people lost some confidence in Amazon. But then quickly they fixed it. So Y2K, people thought the world is going to come to an end. At least the economic system, the supply system, everything. So then people started to act very funny. What did they do? They stocked a lot of food in their house, and water, and batteries, and flashlights, and right? And then some people decided to sell their house and move into the country, into the forest somewhere, and build some kind of place where they could live without electricity. Some people sold their houses, so people started acting real funny, right? So, Sindhu explained, you make a mistake, you believe the mistake is true, that's called illusion, and then when you act as if the illusion is true, you start making crazy decisions, and those crazy, let's say, actions are called acting in a deluded state of mind, delusion. When you act on the illusion, then you're deluded, all right? So, I'm going to give you an example of someone who's deluded. Have you ever heard of Stephen Hawkins?
Stephen Hawking?
Yeah.
Yes.
Who is he?
I think he's a...
Huh? A what? A dentist?
Oh, I think he's a person who like freezes people's.
He what? No, Stephen Hawkins is a person who's considered to be on the same level as Einstein, a brilliant scientist. Is that who you thought he was? No. No, okay.
It was a guy in freeze.
I thought...
He freezes people?
I thought he was a guy.
He was a dentist? So, Stephen Hawkins is one of the most prominent scientists in the world today. And he believes that human beings do not have a future on the earth. And that in order to continue the human species, we should all move to outer space. Huh? What's that?
That'd be fun.
You want to go to the moon?
Yeah.
Yeah?
One place.
You think you'd be able to live on the moon?
8 days later, with the oxygen chaos.
You would not be able to live there?
No, but
Why not?
because I don't have oxygen.
So why would you want to go there then?
I want to go there because then they would provide oxygen and
Who's they? Who's they?
the scientists.
How are they going to provide oxygen if there's no oxygen there?
They can make rockets coming every 6 weeks.
What if their computers fail?
Then that would be bad.
Right. Did Amazon's computers fail?
Yeah.
So you don't think the scientists' computers would fail also sometime?
Yeah.
So it would be very risky then to depend on them if you lived on the moon. You see, it's not the atmosphere in which human beings can live. We don't have a body that's made to live on the moon or on Mars.
When the sun and when the moon...
Can you live in Antarctica?
It's way too cold there.
But it's on the Earth, isn't it? You know how cold it is on the moon?
Sometimes it gets really hot. Sometimes it gets really hot.
Okay.
Only if you're on the light side.
What could you live in the Arabian desert? Yeah. So you see, you're even on the earth. There are places you couldn't exist. It would be too hard. You would end up dying. So what about the moon or Mars or Jupiter or Mercury? How about the sun? Could you live on the sun? No. Yeah. So how does this theory of Stephen Hawking, who's like the modern Einstein, sound? He's saying man has no future on the earth because of environmental, destruction, and therefore we should all move to outer space.
Einstein would say he's an idiot.
What?
Einstein would say he's an idiot.
Yes. Why Einstein? Any person with common sense would say this is a crazy idea, right?
Who believes in it?
A lot of people believe it.
Why? Like, what's his point?
Well, his point is, okay, let me read something. Okay, well, I'll read, there's a newspaper article quoting him. Okay, so it says here, that he believes that the earth cannot sustain human, let's say, life because of the environmental damage that's being done, of global warming, this thing and that thing. And he says, if we want to perpetuate the human species, we have to live in outer space, and either in spaceships or places like the moon or Mars or other planets. Okay? So that's one of his crazy ideas. Then he has another crazy idea also. He says that God does not exist.
What? Who said that?
Stephen Hawking. Right. Huh?
Stephen
Hawking's. He's the modern Einstein, right? He says that God does not exist. So does that sound like a good scientific theory? No. So even though he's a very brilliant guy in material science, he comes to conclusions that are completely stupid. Now, Darwin also came to a conclusion that we all come from monkeys. Does that sound like a good scientific theory?
No.
No.
If we came from monkeys,
Then how come the monkeys are still here?
yeah, how come they didn't evolve into humans suddenly?
Yeah, how come they continue to exist? See, another way of defeating Darwin's theory is, if there's the evolution of species, how come all the species are still here? If they're supposed to evolve.
They only have one proof that why we came from monkeys, because we have the same DNA.
Yeah, and they have fingers. That's why. But then monkeys aren't evolving. Monkeys are dumb and we're smart.
Okay, so today we talked about the three pramanas, which are
Amana.
Anumana is one, which means what?
Yes.
Yes, probably.
Pratyaksha is seen directly.
Seeing directly, yes. And?
And
Sabha.
No, sabda, which means?
Vedic knowledge.
Yeah, hearing. Vedic knowledge from a perfect. Arush, did you want to say something? Huh? Quiet, Krishna 1 and 2. Yes? Sabda, yes. Okay, we'll stop here. We'll continue a little bit more after the opening of the deities.
Before your books here.